Hello again. Alright, this video is going to cover the topic of profit. More specifically, profit for starting areas in the beginning. This video, like the last one I did, is in response to a lot of people having problems with profit starting out. There's a lot of things to consider and to factor in for profit. There's a lot of things you can do wrong, which will drain your profit and leave you in a bad way with money for a long time to come. First and foremost, the most important thing is patience. I know that SimCity has been gone from the world of most of us from a very long time, and we're used to Sims and city Sims that give us instant gratification over the SimCity franchise, where we have to wait a decent amount of time before we start seeing the benefits of our labors. Now, as I touched on previously in my last video, one of the main keys is patience and starting small and staying small. If you build all the way out here, cover everything from the very get-go, everything's gonna be low density. You're still gonna be tier 1 density. And you're just going to have a whole mess of issues, and things are just going to spiral out of control, as I found out my first playthrough of SimCity. As you can see right now, I'm fluctuating around 4,000 simoleons an hour. Now, one of the important things to touch on is if all of your development, if you made the mistake of like overdeveloping and placing so much stuff all over the map that everything is still tier 1 density, that right there is going to lower your profit. People who are in tier 1 density compared to tier 2 density are going to make less money. Okay? So, for example, if this whole area right here that I have of residential, commercial, and industrial was all tier 1 density, I wouldn't be making hardly any money. But since everything is tier 2 for the most part and still expanding, my cash flow from residential and industrial, which I have the most of, is bringing me the most money. That's one important thing to remember. Always start small, stay small, and let your areas of residence, commercial, and industry build up to at least tier 2 density. That way you'll have a bigger population, a bigger workforce, and more people bringing in more money via residential, industrial, or commercial. Now, once you've gotten to this stage, it's also really important to remember not to start saving up money and throwing out all kinds of civil services or fluff items that aren't needed at this current point in time of your city. That's another thing that will really kill your profits, is just throwing stuff on your city that you don't need, because everything in this game has an upkeep cost. Some of them get really ridiculous as you start buying the bigger things. So when you start plopping out tier 2 garbage recycling centers, which is 700 an hour, that's a big chunk, and it adds up. And it adds up quickly. So, I mean, it's a balancing act of how much money, your city at the current point in time is bringing in compared to how much upkeep you can put out via, culture items, specialization items, civil service items. It's always better to upgrade the items you have already out compared to plopping out new things. For example, for a police station, the expenses are $625 an hour. Pretty hefty starting out. A lot of people will see a little quest it gives, which will say, "Do you want to place another police station because we can't cover our area?" And some people might go, "Oh, okay, that sounds like a good idea." They plop another one. There's 1,250 simoleons of upkeep an hour, which is huge at the beginning stages. And instead of doing that, all you have to do is simply add on what you need, which will save you a little bit more money, and you can go as you need instead of having to waste more money than what's needed. The second part is you want to start your specializations, whatever it may be, casinos, drilling, oil, whatever you choose to do. You want to start them fairly early because they do take quite a while to build up. For example, I have 2 casinos out, one of which is bringing in $30,000 a day. The second of which is bringing in $1,000 a day. And the reason why there's such a huge difference is because this casino that's bringing in $30,000, I placed about an hour and a half ago, and it takes about an hour and a half to really get it kicking off, and that's an hour and a half, real time, not game time. And you don't want to start plopping like 3 or 4 of them, because then that's another way to really put yourself in the negative. Always start with one, whether it's a gambling house or a coal mine or an oil rig, and let it build up. And also, adding on the additions is another thing which you need to do first and foremost before you start plopping down additional items, because that'll bring in more revenue and also count towards the goals you need for your specializations as well. I just plopped this one down 10 minutes ago, and for the gambling house, it starts off in the negative, and it goes further in the negative for a while until you get tourists that start coming in, which will also increase your revenue once you start getting more tourists. And you keep up your tourist rate for a longer amount of time, the more money you'll make until it caps. Another point of that, if you do go the gambling route, is to make sure that your streets and your routes to the gambling house are clear. I mean, if you have a lot of traffic jams, anywhere from the start of your city to the point of destination, you'll lose tourists. As you can see on my map, I have very, very little traffic. Even during daytime, during prime time, I have very little traffic, simply for the fact that my streets are well coordinated, and I also have a bus depot with the maximum amount of buses added on. That'll help declog your traffic. I mean, all of this plays a huge central part to the money you make. I mean, it's easy as seeing, your city budget, and like I make a massive amount of money from residential, and I make a massive amount from industrial. I don't make much from commercial because I don't have a lot of it zoned. And as you can see in my city specialization, my expenses for it are $1,500, but my profits from it are over 3,000. So I'm doubling what my expenses are at this current point in time. Now, when my second casino hits 30,000, that'll be a lot higher, and that'll be a lot more money that I'm making. On a final note, I do want to state that when you start your city, your taxes start off at 10% across the board. You don't need to stay at this. You can actually go to 10% or 11% while keeping your happiness good, and them not throwing fits and riots about too high of taxes. Just be careful with how much you play with it. Um, that's about it for the beginning standpoint of profit. As always, if you have any questions or comments or any suggestions on how I could better improve this, please leave suggestions and comments below, or any questions you might have. Thank you.